Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Kal Halayim La, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Harachak Wadash. Double honors to my teachers, the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who rule well and are worthy of their double honors. Peace and blessing to you, Akim, pushing out this truth across the four corners during these last sects of time. Kwam Yashala, Shalom. And this is going to be a quick hit. Just going into this article entitled China Lashes Out. Says peasants in the U.S. will suffer from trade war. China lashes out. Says peasants in the U.S. will suffer from trade war. I'll probably name this something along the lines of trade war, thick clay, something of that nature. Trade war, thick clay, something of that nature. All right, going into the debt, which is leading to great controversy between these different nations on the earth, in particular these two nations here, China and the United States. All right, it says China lashes out, says peasants in the U.S. will suffer from trade war. It says a Chinese official lashed out against the president on Tuesday, which was yesterday, reportedly stating that the peasants in the U.S. will suffer from the trade war. It says the director of China's Affairs Office under the State Council criticized tariff policies levied by the Trump administration as extremely shameless. And these different nations are coming up against America in the form of the BRICS nations, which stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. These nations have assembled themselves against America, Babylon the Great, and against its currency, against its fiat currency, against its dollar, against its way of living. And America has increased its tariffs against China up 125%, all right? And they're verbally abusing China in the media. And so is the same way for China towards America, all right? So it says extremely shameless. Now it says appearing to address past remarks by the vice president of the U.S., Zaya said, let those peasants in the U.S. wail in front of the 5,000 years of Chinese civilization. All right. Now you see that type of comment being made on the forefront of where a couple of days ago you had the president say that, well, now we're going to have a 125% increase on tariffs against you all. And then you see in China in a state of mind where they're saying basically, hey, bring it on. All right. If you're going to come with your tariffs, come with them. But ultimately that controversy is brought to us by whom the word ignorantly calls God, through whom the word ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. The Lord is stirring up that controversy on the earth between these different nations. They're going at each other, calling each other peasants. But what is this ultimately going to end in? They're not going to have a boxing match, all right? They're not going to meet up in a part of town and get into a fist fight. No, they're going to get into a nuclear war, okay, against each other. Let me get it real quick. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 9, verse 5. It says, for every battle of the warriors with confused noise and garments rolled in blood. World War I, World War II, all right? But the third war's war coming quickly. So it says, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire, all right? This world's war will be with burning and fuel of fire. And it's leading up to that because you're having economic wars, political wars, all right, social wars, okay? You have educational wars, all right? And all these things are leading to a great collapse, all right? These different nations are geared up against each other, and they're going to give it all they have, all right? Like this article is going to go into what this ambassador from China is saying. He says, let those peasants in the U.S. wail in front of the 5,000 years of Chinese civilization. It says Vance told the news that last week that the globalist economy in the U.S. is based on the principle of incurring a huge amount of debt to buy things that other countries make for us. So basically what they're saying is, and that's the number one rule of borrowing, All right, you don't lend from the table. Basically, if you have someone that is borrowing from you to buy from you, you're not gaining anything. And that's what it's saying. And it says, to make it a little bit more crystal clear, we borrow money from Chinese peasants to buy the things those Chinese peasants manufacture. So he's saying that basically they borrow in order to buy. Okay, so he's basically throwing this in China's face. Okay, in the event of all these tariff increases and this back and forth. So it says that is not a recipe for economic prosperity. It's not a recipe for low prices, and it's not a recipe for good jobs in the U.S. And that's ultimately what we're going to see. We're going to see an increase in prices. We're going to see no jobs, okay, and we're going to see no economic prosperity here in Babylon the Great. All right, as it is written, the city of confusion is broken down. But all of this great debt that America has accumulated from all of this borrowing is going to backfire. All right, this is Habakkuk 2:6. It says, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is his, which is not his, Salakia. Woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. How long? And to him that laded himself with thick clay. And that's Babylon the Great, America, led and spearheaded by Esau Edom, all right, the wicked of the Bible, okay, that have increased it, that which is not his, throughout the whole entire planet Earth. Like this chapter goes into, he enlarged himself as hell, okay, he consumeth up the riches upon the earth, and even the riches of the Lord, which is his people, man, all right. But what has it done? What has it profited him? All of this debt that he accumulated. All right. So let's go into that thick clay.
Strong's H 5671.
Abtit. It says, weight of pledges, heavy debts. Weight of pledges, heavy debts. Strong's definition: something pledged, pawn goods, thick clay. And America has pledged things in order to get those advances from these different nations. They've pledged things, and guess what? Now these other nations, they don't want your silver and gold, like the scriptures say. The so-called Russians are not going to be satisfied with your gold and silver, man. They're going to cast it into the street. And the same will be with Moab, the Chinese. Get it real quick. This is Isaiah 13:17. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them. And that's talking about the Russians. All right. Which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. And that's the spirit that not only Russia is in, but China, all right, North Korea, the BRICS nations, all right, South Africa, Brazil, India. The host of nations are against the society. They're against its image. They're against its money system. All right. So trade wars, heavy debts. Lord willing, this quick hit was edifying. I'm going to give infinite honors and praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Harachak, Wadash. Double honors to my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings till next time. Kwam Yashala. Shalom.